Good afternoon. I am Leslie Paige, President of the National Association of School Psychologists. Periodically over the past 2 months, I have shared messages related to NASP's work and the role of school psychologists in supporting all students, families, and schools during the pandemic. This is important work that seems likely to continue for some time to come, but my purpose today is to raise up NASP's voice with those of others, calling for action to end racism and violence against people of color, especially Black individuals in this country. The recent deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd laid bare again the reality of continued systemic racism and deeply embedded inequities and prejudice that far too often end in unjustifiable tragedy. NASP put out a statement earlier today, and I want to reinforce our position that this must stop and that school psychologists have a critical role. Advancing social justice is a strategic goal for NASP and an ethical principle for school psychologists. We serve on the front lines of advocacy for all children. For school psychologists, social justice includes addressing systemic barriers such as the long-term issues of poverty, inequity, prejudice, racism, and violence. We are committed to helping ensure that all children live, learn, and play in safe, supportive communities and schools with access to equitable systems, supports, and opportunities. If we are not part of the effort to end racism, we are complicit. I know that standing up and speaking out can be difficult. Engaging in discussions about racism and privilege and how biases contribute to systemic barriers for others can feel very uncomfortable. But as school psychologists, this is our wheelhouse. We know that schools are a critical factor in helping to break down barriers and promote equity. And the fact that we are not in school physically does not lessen our responsibility to work with our fellow educators to help children feel safe and supported. We must also proactively address the issues of safety, racism, and equity as we plan for our return to school. Now, this includes examining the structures and policies that have historically marginalized certain groups and work to dismantle these in our schools. We need to help school staff and students engage in these critical conversations in a thoughtful and respectful manner. We must recognize and address the acute stress and trauma in students and staff who experience or are at risk of racism. And we must ensure that if law enforcement is present in schools, officers are carefully selected and trained, are not involved in routine discipline, and are committed to building positive relationships with all students equally. And above all, we must speak out. When we see racism and inequity, we must name it and stop it. NASP has a number of resources to help with this work, and I encourage you to read the NASP statement and access our resources at the link on the screen. As so many people have said in recent days, it is not enough to be angry. We can and we must do better through our words and actions. NASP's vision is that all children and youth access the learning, behavior, and mental health support needed to thrive in school, at home, and throughout life. This is all of our responsibility, perhaps especially those of us who experience the benefits of privilege. Our children are depending on it.